The most horrifying workplace accidents ever. Let's get into it.
Every day, millions of people head to work expecting to make it home by the end of their shift. But throughout history, a handful of workplace disasters have turned ordinary workdays into unimaginable nightmares. In one case, a chicken processing plant burst into flames while workers desperately discovered the exits had been padlocked shut. In another, a space shuttle crew unknowingly spent 2 weeks in orbit after a piece of foam struck their wing during launch, sealing their fate before their mission had...
Did you just say a piece of foam? Foam? My nigga, when you fucking with like space jobs and shit, you gotta be extra precise. You saw this? What's this?
They will be performing in New Orleans at the Superdome. Yay!
No, in the Superdome? Might have to pop out of that shit though. Hold on. New Orleans?
begun. And in perhaps the most terrifying example of all, a cargo ship loaded with fertilizer exploded with such force that it leveled entire sections of a Texas city and killed hundreds of people in the process. In today's video, we will be talking about the most horrifying workplace accidents in history. And if you're not subscribed, don't even worry about that. I will earn your subscription by the end of this video. Washington chemical tank implosion. On the morning of May 26, 2020.
Washington chemical tank implosion. Yo, if you working on a fucking chemical plant, my nigga, listen to the safety nigga. I know y'all don't like the safety niggas and shit, but you fucking with some chemicals and shit, dog.
26, in the small town of Longview, Washington, a tank the size of a building folded in on itself and unleashed hundreds of thousands of gallons of a chemical that, in the words of medical experts, burns worse than acid. By the time it was over, 11 men were dead, and it went down again. That's based.
How much y'all gotta get paid an hour to work at some shit like this? I'm gonna need at least like 70 an hour. I'm working around some acid. Shit could burn me if I touch it, my nigga.
On some opinions as the deadliest industrial accident in modern Washington history. Now, you've probably seen the aerial photos of the crumpled tank if you follow the news, but what really is strange and sad is the timing and the small ordinary details of that morning. So let's get into it. First, a little context on what that place even is. Nippon Dynawave Packaging is a pulp and paper mill near the Columbia River, employing about 550 people, and every year it churns out roughly 300,000 tons of liquid packaging paper for cartons and cups, the equivalent of about 6 billion quart-sized milk cartons. So basically, the next time you pour a glass of milk, there's a decent chance the carton started somewhere in Nippon Dynawave.
From them niggas.
Now, the thing that killed these men was a chemical called white liquor. It's used to break wood down into pulp. It's made up of sodium hydroxide, sodium sulfide, and disodium carbonate. It's described as being like...
So basically, that shit would just disintegrate you as soon as you touch that bitch. Fuck that.
Concentrated bleach that, when it touches your skin, destroys cells and can seep all the way down to the bone. It can also give off a toxic fume called hydrogen sulfide and wrecks your lungs. So yeah, in short, a big chemical plant with massive chemical tanks that would mean certain death if you came into contact with their contents. The implosion happened at the worst possible moment, right during a morning shift change. The day shift had started around 7 a.m. and a group of workers had gathered.
Damn, dude. So they swapping shifts from the overnight niggas in the morning crew. You... Bro, this happened to the morning crew. You getting there. As soon as you clock in, you getting fucked. Like, bro, fuck.
For a safety meeting to get their assignments for the day. And where did they assemble? Well, right close to that towering 900,000 gallon tank, which was about 2/3 full at the time. So you had this big cluster of people standing, rather unfortunately, near the one thing that was about to fail. And to make it even worse, the little details of that morning are just gut-wrenching. Take Jared Ammons, who was 35. He'd actually come in early so he could leave later for his wife's ultrasound appointment. They'd found...
Damn, dog. Hey, man. R.I.P. this nigga, bro.
Out just the week before she was expecting their first child together. That morning he texted her telling her he loved her and that she was beautiful. Then there's CJ Doran, who was just 26, who'd actually waved off his wife's suggestion to extend their Memorial Day weekend staycation because if he didn't go in, he wouldn't get his holiday pay. Anyway, sometime between 7:10 and 7:14 a.m., the tank failed and collapsed. Thousands of gallons of white liquor poured out, and anyone in its path either died or was badly hurt. The rushing force was so violent, it blew out cinder block shop walls and actually flipped the Nippon's 4x4 trucks like they were toys. Residents up to a mile away heard a boom, but they didn't think much of it because they're always hearing sounds from the mill. So when the autopsies came back, the coroner confirmed all of them had suffered alkaline chemical burns, and the manner of death for every victim was ruled an accident.
Damn, man.
Explosion at U.S. Steel.
RIP them niggas, bro. Shit like that is why oh man. Y'all be safe, y'all got jobs like this, dog.
Clairton Coke Works. Now it's a Monday morning, 10:47.
Like, bro, that just imagine a fucking water well in your city falling down and that shit filled with acid and is fucking flooding the whole city. That's damn near what happened over there, but with a fucking mill like style chemical whatever the fuck them shit's called. That shit crazy, bro.
7 a.m., and the largest coke making plant in the entire Western Hemisphere suddenly lets out an ear-piercing boom that sends a black plume of smoke rising into the Pittsburgh sky. That was U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works in August of 2025, and the man I want you to meet first is Don Furco, a steel worker of 25 years and a former local union president. When that blast went off, he pulled on his flame-retardant jacket and pants, his hard hat and safety glasses, left his post, and ran straight towards the smoke. And what he found is something he can barely put into words. Hero. I can't even explain how mangled everything was. There were flames everywhere. Through all the chaos, he could hear a fellow steelworker scream.
Hey man, I'm gonna be honest. Some shit like that going on wherever I work, you gotta get up out that bitch. Running back in there, I don't know.
Screaming, buried under the rubble. Then there's Renee Hugh, a utility technician whose job was loading coke.
You better than
By
me,
the way,
man.
When
You
I
better
say
than
coke,
me.
we're talking about the essential raw material used in primary steel making, not cocaine. She was sitting in the cab of the plant's screening station when the explosion sent dust waves through the air and blinded her in the black dust. Her very first thought, I was dead. Then the flames came as the dust settled, and a voice crackled over the radio telling her that Battery 13 had just exploded. When it was all over, that blast had killed 2 U.S. steel workers and injured 11 others, including contractors. With that in mind, here's some better context to specifically answer, what is this place, and why is it so dangerous? First, the what. Clairton Coke Works is a 392-acre facility that opened more than a century ago, sitting about 20 miles south of Pittsburgh along the Monongahela River. Its ovens heat cold to around 2,000
look at all this
degrees
smoke and shit. Ain't no way this shit is healthy. Like, you working in this shit for 30, 40 years, breathing this shit in. Ain't no way that your body not fucked up, at least a little bit.
hours to turn it into coke, which is a key ingredient in making steel. But the catch is that the process isn't clean and it isn't safe.
Y'all work at the coke plant?
Color work. Next, the
I ain't
why.
fucking with that
Why is
coke
it
plant.
dangerous? Well, heating the coal produces a flammable byproduct called coke oven gas, which contains hydrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. And because of that high hydrogen content, the stuff is downright explosive. When you've got
I
that
ain't fucking
around,
with
you've
the
gotta
coke
be
plant
very,
gang.
very careful. So from there, the story gets, honestly, a little maddening. The Federal Chemical Safety Board found that the explosion happened while the workers were down in a basement, closing and opening a gas isolation valve after pumping water into it. Now here's the thing. The company's own written procedure didn't even mention using water, but a supervisor directed the workers to pump it anyway, according to a U.S.
You see, and you got to be on point. They not supposed to use water. They using water.
Steel vice president.
One person mistake could fucking end everything.
The workers ended up trapping 3,000 psi of water inside a valve that only rated for 50 psi. Yes, only 50 psi was holding 3,000 psi inside. There's no scenario where that was going to end well. And it didn't.
And
The
all
valve
that shit
cracked,
just built
gas
up.
filled the area, the gas hit an ignition source, and it went up. What really makes you raise an eyebrow, though, is that this was far from the plant's first tragedy. Back in 2009, a maintenance worker was killed in a blast. In 2010, an explosion injured 14 employees and 6 contractors.
My nigga, what the fuck? How is this company still running? Yo, that shit happened a year after. It went from 2009 to 2010.
In 2014, a worker was
Then in 2014. Nobody's suing these niggas.
burned and died after falling into a trench. One workers' compensation attorney pointed out that since 2009, there had been 3 accidents resulting in fatalities, which he said is just not common in today's age of safety,
Ooh,
calling it flat out
nah.
a dangerous place to work. And current and former workers have a theory as to why. They blame poor management and underinvestment, in an aging facility, with one former worker saying that when something went wrong, it was often because corporate wouldn't approve ordering the parts. US Steel, for its part,
They trying to save their money, not repairing shit, not, you know, they trying to be cheap about shit. That's what it is, bro. I remember I used to work at a fucking warehouse. These niggas would leave pallets like I'd be on a fucking forklift and these niggas would have the pallet sticking out. And basically, if you riding and the fucking pallet sticking out and the forklift got a little overhead bar that raises probably about 5-10 feet, you could ride past the pallet and completely knock that bitch off. And if you got somebody that's working next to you, that motherfucker could just fling off and hit them niggas. So it's like, bro, y'all not even like paying attention what y'all doing for real. You're not training people. You're not upgrading equipment. You got these old dingy pallets sticking out. It's like, come on, bro. It's just room for somebody to fucking hurt themselves.
insists that safety is its core value. But for Furco, who's seen guys lose legs to rail equipment over his 25 years, nothing has ever hit him quite like this. Deadly fire at Hamlet Chicken Processing Plant.
Ooh,
This one is
chicken
from
processing
1991,
plant.
so it's older, and trust me, we're going to get into a lot of older ones, but it's the kind of story that stays with you because so much of it was preventable. It happened at the Imperial Foods Chicken Processing Plant in the small town of Hamlet, North Carolina, and the detail that everyone remembers is the locked doors. But there's a lot more to it than that, and once you understand the why, it gets even more infuriating, so let me walk you through it. The plant was owned by a man named Emmett Rowe and run alongside his son Brad, who served as operations manager. Now, the Rowes weren't new to this. They'd been in the chicken processing business since the early 1970s, originally up in Pennsylvania before they moved
Wait,
to
what do they do? How are they processing this chicken? What's going on?
down south. And why they do that? Well, partly because production was cheaper down there. But there's another reason that's a little more telling, according to one historian. Rowe came south looking for leniency after OSHA had fined his Pennsylvania plant for dozens of violations, and he found it. In fact, he never even registered the Hamlet plant with North Carolina's Labor Department, which meant it would never be inspected. So have that in mind, because here's how it all went wrong. For months, a hydraulic
What's up? Earlier, I had like 4 people. No, nigga, I'm live. My VOD is going up. Get the hell out of here.
Stay in here.
I'm doing a video.
I want to watch you.
Close the door.
I'm bored.
Bored? Alright. Well, just chill. Don't talk.
line on a conveyor belt that carried chicken to fryers had been leaking. The plant's head mechanic had actually asked Brad Rowe for money to buy new parts to fix it, but
What? Yeah, a little bit. No.
that request got denied. Instead, the crew was told to improvise with spare parts, which was apparently a common money-saving move at this place. So, on the morning of September 3rd, 1991, right after a long Labor Day weekend, the maintenance crew was reworking that line. They decided against shutting off the nearby fryer while they did it, partly because the downtime would anger Brad, and partly avoid the hassle. Then,
Yo, I didn't even pay attention to what the fuck is going on.
older, and trust me, we're going to get into a lot of older ones, but it's the kind of story that stays with you because so much of it was preventable. It happened at the Imperial Foods Chicken Processing Plant in the small town of Hamlet, North Carolina, and the detail that everyone remembers is the locked doors.
Hey, all this shit be happening like, and then they, like the tragedy happened, and then these niggas have to come up with a safety method based off the tragedy. So it's always a nigga that gotta fucking die at the expense of, okay, now we know we can't do this shit. Now we know we gotta do this because we fucking killed 10 niggas in a fucking factory or some shit.
But there's a lot more to it than that, and once you understand the why, it gets even more infuriating, so let me walk you through it. The plant was owned by a man named Emmett Rowe and run alongside his son Brad, who served as operations manager. Now, the Rowes weren't new to this. They'd been in the chicken processing business since the early 1970s, originally up in Pennsylvania before they moved the whole operation down south. And why they do that? Well, partly because production was cheaper down there. But there's another reason that's a little more telling, according to one historian. Rowe came south looking for leniency after OSHA had fined his Pennsylvania plant for dozens of violations, and he found it. In fact, he never even registered the Hamlet plant with North Carolina's Labor Department, which meant it would never be inspected. So have that in mind, because here's how it all went wrong. For months, a hydraulic line on a conveyor belt that carried chicken to fryers had been leaking. The plant's head mechanic had actually asked
and I bet you them niggas ain't replaced that shit. Shit just leak and they letting that motherfucker leak. That bitch too expensive to replace, my cut. We could just let that bitch, tell that bitch break.
row for money to buy new parts to fix it,
What
but
I
that request
said.
got denied.
What I
Instead, the crew was
said.
told to improvise with spare parts, which was apparently a common money-saving move at this place. So, on the morning of September 3rd, 1991, right after a long Labor Day weekend, the maintenance crew was reworking that line. They decided against shutting off the nearby fryer while they did it, partly because the downtime would anger Brad, and partly
You leaving? Alright.
avoid the hassle. Then, around 8:15 a.m., they turned the line on and the improvised connector failed. Hydraulic oil sprayed everywhere, some of it landed on the heating lines of the cooker, vaporized, and the fumes hit the open flame and ignited. The line ended up pumping somewhere between 50 and 55 gallons of fluid into that fire before it shut off. And the plant sprinkler system, it had actually been disabled by an earlier fire years before. And
what the fuck, my nigga? Y'all operating with some shit that could blow up. Y'all operate with some shit that could catch fire. Y'all ain't even got no goddamn sprinkler system installed. Room for disaster.
Never repaired.
Yo, this video 33 minutes,
Within
and I'm only 15 minutes on my recording.
2 minutes,
I'ma lock in. I'ma lock in on the
flames.
video.
And here's
I ain't
where
gonna
the
pause
horror
as
sets
much.
in. As workers tried to flee, they ran for the exits and found them padlocked from the outside. Emmett Rowe had directed a maintenance
Yo, they locked themselves in. That's crazy.
worker to chain those doors shut, supposedly to stop employees from stealing chicken. One loading dock exit was blocked.
They locked them in because they thought they was stealing chicken. Yo, that's not funny. I'm not laughing at them. But that is fucked up.
By a delivery truck with the driver asleep in the cab and another obstructed by a dumpster. People kicked at the doors and couldn't get them open. By the time it was over, 25 workers had died and 54 were injured. Many of the dead were single mothers from the impoverished local community. And the aftermath? Emmett Rowe pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and was sentenced to nearly 20 years, though he was released after serving only a portion of it. The fire did push North Carolina to pass 14 new worker
How he got
safety
off
laws,
on that?
but for the
That's
families,
crazy.
it was far too late. Now, guys, I usually don't input my opinions a lot when I'm talking
20 years and he only did a portion and he killed almost 50 people. That's fucked up.
about these stories, but causing these people to burn alive due to your neglect as a boss, having them die in one of the most horrific ways possible.
You should have given him life. You should have got life.
Locked inside and only getting 20 years, but then not even that. Nah, he got let out early because he just served a portion of it. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm reporting to you guys. Like, well, that sounds like I don't know what I'm saying. No. Sometimes I don't understand. I don't get it either. I don't. I don't. Well, the root of everything, guys, you know what it is money. Is money. There you go. There's the answer. It's going to be the answer to almost every question you have. It's going to be money. Almost. Not every single answer. But yeah, let's head on to the next one.
That's fucked
I
up.
dare you to let me
Yo, why the fuck is this nigga looking at me like this? Get the fuck out of here, you fucking dumbass. I'm gonna have to cut you out the fucking video, you fucking freaky ass nigga.
16-story collapse. This next one is about the danger that comes from building the very places we live in, and I want to start with what is still the worst building collapse in Connecticut history. It happened on April 23rd, 1987 in Bridgeport at a 16-story apartment complex that was going to be called L'Ambiance Plaza. And to understand how this went so catastrophically wrong, you need to understand the method they were using. This was a method called lift slab. Now, lift slab is exactly what it sounds like.
Hey, for the longest, I used to always be like, bro, how the fuck they get them big ass cranes up there? Like, these niggas be having skyscrapers with a big ass crane on top of there. But they use methods like these, I guess. I don't know. Working on a tall ass building, my nigga. That's one thing about it. I could not fuck with that.
Instead of building
You could do that? You work on like a tower or some shit? Nah, fuck that shit.
each floor up in the air, workers pour the concrete floor slabs flat on the ground, then raise them up to the proper level using hydraulic jacks before fastening them onto the building's vertical steel columns. It's very clever in theory, and to keep workers safe during all this, OSHA had standards requiring the lifting systems to be able to carry 2.5 times more than the expected load. Whether those standards were actually followed here became a huge point of controversy later. Anyway, on that afternoon, not long after lunch, the workers were back at it laying slabs. Then, at 1:36 p.m., a slab slipped, and when one slipped, it set off an enormous domino-like cascade with the
Oh.
slabs pancaking down onto the workers below. Several
Oh.
completed floors of the structure just toppled inward, crumpling into a pile of debris and dust in seconds. When the dust settled, 28 construction workers were dead and 22 others were injured. Among the dead were 27 men and one teenager, a boy who'd been working at the
He said it would collapse. Damn.
site alongside his father. So what caused it? Oh, that's the frustrating part. A whole bunch of theories came out: a bent support column, columns out of alignment, cracks in the concrete, improper curing, a malfunctioning hydraulic lift, and on and on. The Labor Department even referred the contractor Techstar to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution, but in the end, the federal prosecutor recommended no charges be filed, saying there just wasn't enough evidence. The families eventually got a $41 million settlement, but the question of who was actually to blame, it was never really answered. One lasting change was that lift slab construction got hit with a moratorium until 1994.
I'm knowing like the CEOs of these companies definitely paying off something. They gotta have money involved in the government. How they getting out of these? How they getting out of prison and all these other things? Like they gotta have money invested in the city if it's a big ass company that's making money and cutting corners by not paying to upgrade things or follow proper protocol. It's crazy, bro. And it's greed and money. That's most of the time these niggas is losing their lives based off of money and greed.
When new federal rules came out. Now you might think with all the modern safety advances, this kind of construction death is a relic of the past, but sadly, it isn't. Fast forward to June 4th, 2026 in Miami, Florida, and we have our second case. At the
2026?
Fast forward to June 4th, 2026 in Miami, Florida.
June 4th?
And we have our second case. At the Ocon Tower construction site. This is a massive project, a 70-story hotel and condominium tower expected to rise more than 900 feet above downtown Miami. And on that day, a structural column that was being erected on the building's very top floor fell, trapping several workers underneath it. The one who didn't make it was Maria Fernanda Gonzalez Garcia, just 25 years old. She was struck by that falling column and died shortly after arriving at the hospital. Another male worker suffered serious injuries and is facing a long recovery. So nearly 4 decades apart in 2 different states, 2 reminders that the people putting up our skylines are taking a very real risk every single day.
R.I.P. man.
The Pemberton Mill disaster. Next, we're going
And that's why you ain't catching me on no motherfucking skyscraper.
way back to 1860 for what is still the worst industrial accident in Massachusetts history. And honestly, the scale of this one is hard to even wrap your head around because we're talking about hundreds of victims here. So let me set the scene for you. The place was the Pemberton Mill in Lawrence, Massachusetts, a textile factory that was, at the time, one of the city's newest.
This shit in the
and largest.
1800s?
It was such a beast of a building, 5 stories high, 280 feet long, and 84 feet wide. It had cost $850,000 to build, which back then was an absolute fortune. But there's a detail that matters a lot in how this story ends, and it's that during the financial panic of 1857, the original builders sold the mill off, and the new partners who took over crammed even more heavy machinery into the building to squeeze out more profit. By the time of the disaster, the mill had 2,700 spindles and 700 looms, earning the owners about $1.5 million a year. So just keep that image in your head. Floor after floor packed with heavy
1.5 million in whatever year this was probably equates to a lot of money nowadays.
textile machines. Now, on the evening of January 10th, 1860, there were around
1860. Let me see. Let's see. How much money was $1.5 million? What the fuck? Yo, this shit be listening to what the fuck I'm saying.
800 mill workers and
Hold on. What year?
machines. Now, on the evening of January 10th, 1860,
1860. This shit dead ass put 1805. It was close, but nigga, what the fuck? $1.5 million equates to 60 million in 2026. 60.5 million. I guess.
there were around
If you a
800 mill
male,
workers
maybe.
inside.
I don't
Most
know.
of them were women and children. A lot of them were recent immigrants too.
I guess that's a lot, right?
Ireland during the potato famine, with others from Scotland, Germany, and Switzerland. And then it happened. The workers heard this odd rattle followed by a long, ear-splitting crash. Part of the building's brick wall bulged and then exploded, and within seconds, the whole mill just collapsed. Tons of machinery fell straight through the disintegrating floors,
Just
dragging
collapsing on
screaming
your
workers
ass.
down with it. When it was over, the collapsed building had formed a pyramid of rubble about 50 feet high. Dozens died within minutes. But more than 600 workers were trapped alive in the wreckage of twisted iron, smashed bricks, and splintered beams. The factory bells rang out an alarm, and basically the entire community rushed to the scene to help. Rescuers managed to pull more than 200 people out using ropes to move beams and pillars, calling out to the trapped and giving them water and coffee to keep them going. And when the sun went down, they built bonfires just to be able to see. Then it got worse. Around 10 p.m., two men climbed a crevice
Yo, so they just in here?
with lanterns to rescue a young woman who was trapped, and then one of those lamps broke. The flames raced across the conways and the wood, some of which was soaked in oil, and the whole wreckage went up. The Boston Globe reported that 14 people were burned to death right in front of their loved ones, who could do nothing to help. One man, facing being burned alive, cut his own throat rather than face the flames. He survived that, only to die later of other injuries. By midnight, the screams had finally fallen silent. All told, somewhere between 90 and 145 people were killed and another 166 injured. But what brought the building down? Well, a jury found the engineer, Charles Bigelow, responsible because he'd allowed malformed cast iron columns to support the structure. Bigelow claimed he had no idea anything was wrong with the pillars, and despite hundreds dead, Bigelow never went to prison. In fact, no one received any punishment at all for what was a completely preventable disaster. The 18
Man, I ain't gonna lie. 1865. I might have to skip this one, dog.
The collapse of Pittston Coal Company's slurry dams. After this next disaster happened, just when the Pittston Coal Company was facing the families in court, do you know how they described what happened? In their legal fight,
Like, bro, everything in the 1800s, these niggas just fucking died. Like, that was probably a normal thing. Early 1800s, 1700s, motherfuckers was dying at 30, 40.
filings, they called it, quote, an act of God. And as you'll see, that label sat about as wrong with the survivors as you'd imagine, because there was nothing godly or accidental about it. This is the Buffalo Creek flood, and here's how it unfolded. Up in the mountains of Logan County, West Virginia, the Pittston Coal Company kept 3 dams holding back coal slurry, which is basically the black, sludgy waste left over from mining. Now here's the problem with dam number 3, the one that failed first. It sat about 260 feet above the town of Saunders, and instead of being built on solid bedrock, it was built right on top of the coal slurry sediment that had collected behind the other 2 dams. So you've got a dam made of coarse mining refuse, sitting on a foundation of sludge, looming over people's homes. And get this, a federal mine inspector had declared the impoundment satisfactory just 4 days earlier. So on the morning of February 26, 1972, after heavy rains, dam number 3 gave away, and once it went, the
I'm not talking that much because I'm locked in right now.
water it released overwhelmed dams
Trying to hear
number
what this
2
nigga's
and 1
saying.
in turn, one after the other. The result was a wall of roughly 132 million gallons of black wastewater, cresting over 30 feet high, pouring straight down the hollow. And the people barely had any warning at all. One survivor, Shirley Markham, recalled that the only heads up they got was a neighbor pulling up in front of the house and hollering, "Run, the dam has broke." Then she could hear the roar of it, and she watched her neighbor's houses crumble with trees.
Why would you? I guess because it's back in the gap, maybe. But why would you put your house in the middle of this a dam? Like, I get it. You think it's gonna protect that, but in the event it breaks, you're fucked. 100%. Oh shit. Okay. 100%, nigga. You fucked, nigga. Your house is wiped out. You're gonna drown. You know how much water that shit is?
These logs, cars, and slush all
Unfortunately, my headphones broke because my naughty cat. I can't hear your voice. It'd be great if you could bond. Whoa.
turning inside. The
I'll respond like this. Thank you.
water tore through
I
16
can't type in
towns,
chat because
and
that's
out
gonna
of
be
a
too
population
much.
of about 5,000 people, 125 were killed.
Actually, I'm gonna comment.
1,121
I'm gonna
were
be like,
injured,
follow me.
and over 4,000 were left homeless. A reporter named Mannix Porterfield, who covered it, said the aftermath looked like a battlefield, as if some foreign enemy had flown in and nuked the place with railroad tracks yanked up and twisted in what he called huge metallic pretzels. And what struck him most was that the
So they have follow up. Oh, already follow you. Damn. Thanks for reply. Hey, I appreciate that shit, man. Do I play legal? No, I don't.
survivors weren't even crying.
Let me
They just
lock
had this
in.
blank stare
Let
of
me lock
resignation,
in.
like people who were so used to being battered by hard times that this is just one more installment. Amid all that loss, though, there's one little thread of hope worth mentioning. A baby named Carrie Albright became known as the miracle baby of the disaster. As the leading edge
Did a
of the water
baby
came,
survive
his
this
mother
shit?
threw him just above the flood level moments before she herself drowned. He survived with few ill effects, and his survival ended up giving hope to other survivors. Now about the act of God defense. 2 commissions ended up investigating, and the second one, a citizens commission set up to counter the coal-friendly bias of the first, concluded that the Buffalo Creek Pitson Coal Company was guilty of murdering at least 124 men, women, and children.
Oh my
The state of
god.
West Virginia originally sued Pitson for $100 million in damages, but Governor Arch Moore settled it all for just $1 million. 3 days before he left office in 1977. The survivors who sued separately settled for $13.5 million, which worked out to be $13,000 each after legal costs. Columbia Space Shuttle's explosion in space. Now, this is probably the most famous case in this whole video, and there's a chance
No. No. I don't play League of Legends. No. I don't.
you already know the gist of it. The Space Shuttle Columbia broke up.
Huh? That means I need to? I don't know. What? Yo. Shut your ass up. This is probably gonna be the last one I do because this video is already 30 minutes. So this is gonna be the last segment.
Apart over Texas in 2003, killing all 7 crew members aboard. So instead of just rehashing what everyone knows, I want to focus on the parts
Yo,
that
what
stick
the
with you. The fact that like a large piece of foam
Yo, why the
insulation
fuck is
along
my
with a
follow count not refreshing? That shit pissing me off.
couple of smaller pieces broke off from the shuttle's external propellant tank, and a fraction of a second later, at 81.9 seconds, that big chunk slammed into the leading edge of Columbia's left wing, hitting around the reinforced carbon panels on the underside. Now, from an unformed view, a piece of foam might sound harmless, like a chunk of styrofoam off a cooler, but at launch speeds,
Oh yeah,
it
this is the
struck a
shit
part
with
of
the
wing that
foam.
was absolutely critical because those panels are what protect the shuttle from the insane heat of re-entry. The cameras watching the launch caught the foam collision, so people knew it had happened, but engineers couldn't pinpoint exactly where it hit or how bad the damage was.
Yeah.
Similar foam strikes had actually happened on 3 prior shuttle launches.
Like, imagine they start sending motherfuckers to space. Like, say you could buy a trip to space. It's gonna be motherfuckers that die from that shit. Just like how they got plane crashes and like accidents. It's gonna be accidents like that because now you gotta rely on people you gotta hire to do shit like this. Like NASA, we don't even go to the moon that often because it's like it's no reason for us to, and it takes a lot of research and money. So when you just have a simple space mission like this, you gotta be on point because something simple like a fucking piece of foam got these niggas killed.
Without causing any critical damage, so there was a sense that maybe it was fine. Some engineers, though, worried it could lead to catastrophic failure, but their concerns weren't really addressed during the 2 weeks Columbia.
Yo, Arena, or is that your name? I'm from the America.
Spent in orbit because now
Good answer. They can't even hear me. They said they got the hip. I think they a bot, bro. That gotta be a bot. That gotta be a bot.
telling them there was, quote, absolutely no concern for re-entry, so the crew came home thinking everything was fine. On the morning of February 1st, Columbia re-entered the atmosphere, and because the heat shielding on the left wing had been damaged, wind and searing heat poured into the wing and began tearing it apart.
I gotta be a
timeline of
bot,
those final
bro.
minutes is honestly chilling when you read
Cause
it.
ain't no way
As the
you
shuttle
you
screamed
talking
over
like that.
California, sensors started flashing off nominal readings, one after another, and then ground observers began reporting debris shedding from the orbiter. First one piece, then a second, then a third, the reports just stacking up as it crossed the western states. At 8:59 and 32 seconds, the last communication from the crew was cut off, and the last telemetry was received. Then, at about 9 a.m., the shuttle disintegrated over northeast Texas near Dallas. People on the ground heard a loud boom and saw streaks of smoke across the sky. Debris and the remains of the crew ended up scattered across more than 2,000 locations spread over East Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And as if the loss of 7 lives wasn't enough, the tragedy claimed 2 more. 2 pilots aboard a search helicopter were killed in a crash while looking for debris. On a strangely weird note though, some worms the crew had been using in a study, stored in a canister above the shuttle, actually survived. The explosion.
Alright, that's gonna be a wrap for that video. It's been your boy Lock, man. Like this video. Subscribe. We got another video coming up too. Probably gonna be some 007, some gameplay. Your boy though. We out.
I'm getting this cash. I'm getting this shit real fast. I'm leaving you niggas in the past. These diamonds on my ring, they flash.
Hey, got a new bitch that I had to dash. Hey.